Fagan. I've run zoning board meetings many times. Speak up. Well, since the number 2 and number 3 have already sent us a letter, I'm gonna presume to not be here, then I would say no. And since Circle Grove is tabled, I would say no.
Not opposed to this.
Good to see you, Sparky.
So it doesn't get 20.
Oh, yeah, no, that's what the timers are for. But I would say no.
I don't roll for this anymore, you know?
Whatever. And you have to forgive me because it's been quite a while since I've done a meeting. Completely, from start to finish. Okay. Very good. No clock, who knows?
Pledge.
Okay. Somebody else can lead the pledge, because I'm not a pledger. Meeting's open. Can you lead the pledge of allegiance?
Yeah, we'll all stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did a fine job there, Trent.
Not a pledger.
I'm not
Oh, what the hell?
Okay. Old business? Roll call. Okay,
He's not a pledger.
roll call. You do that?
Chairman James Adela is absent. John Snowden.
Here.
Marissa Gilbert.
Here.
Derek Rosenbaum.
Here.
Richard Perry.
Here.
Kurt Burbidge is absent. Reginald Carter.
Here.
Loretta Briatzman is absent, and Planner Eva Schweber is also absent.
Okay, so we have a full board filled by one alternate,
Yes.
right? In place of regular people. We have the first order of business on the table is 3 Circle Grove, which is just a carryover from last month. There is no new information, correct?
Correct.
And I think our intention was we wanted to remove it from the table so it doesn't continuously show up on the agenda until the applicant has filled the rest of the requirements that we've asked for, and then will be scheduled, because they will present it a timely amended application. Am I correct on this?
That's up to the board.
We want to get it off the repeating agenda.
I would
if possible.
recommend, though, if you're gonna remove it from the table, set a timeline.
Yes.
There's actually no mechanism to just simply remove it from the table. So typically when something's on the table, it's
It
on the
can't-
table till it's, unless the sponsor has requested that it
Be removed from the table.
In that case, then it's either stays on the table or it's put on, stays off the table or it's put back on the table for either an up or down vote.
Okay,
We did
so
that last month.
You
We-
tabled it last month, so if you don't do anything, it just stays on the table until there's action on it.
Okay, so can we make this very clear to all the people that are here for 3 Circle Grove that we have no control over this thing showing up on the agenda, okay? So it's gonna be in the paper, and until he actually shows up with some new information, you can always call, talk to Shalice, she'll say, nope, we didn't get any new information, he's not gonna be heard, it's still just sitting on the table.
Technically, though, the board can still vote to remove it from the table at any meeting, even if he does not submit that information. Is that correct?
You can vote on actual item, yeah.
Stop work order still in place on that project?
I believe so.
On what? Just on?
Construction.
No, because the construction's been going on the house, on the retaining wall,
Yeah, it's just.
Mhm.
and the drainage. Is the stop
Okay.
work order.
I hadn't
So-
heard.
So
Yeah.
it's just sitting there.
So it's just sitting there, so we can just let it sit there as long as you understand why it keeps showing up on the agenda.
Do we just keep putting up with the problem, then the water draining into my garden or anything else? How long is he gonna do it? Forever? So he just needs to keep the wall there for forever? I mean,
He
as long as he
needs to
doesn't come
provide
back, he
more
just needs to do what he
information.
wants.
Do you recall what the final, more information we had asked for that has not been
Nothing
provided?
was asked for. He,
Okay.
Yeah,
the
really
applicant
didn't
requested to table it because I think he could read the board and what way the board was gonna go with it.
Yes.
That's an interpretation.
So
The
what are-
applicant requested to
So
table.
what are our powers to do? Can we issue a stop work order? Do we send it back to the zoning board? Do we send it back to code
Oh,
enforcement?
codes.
What do we?
I defer to Dean, but I think you technically can vote on the item with the information that you have.
That would be one option, yeah, if you wanna address it.
And it would be voting to,
Either approve the site plan or
Decline.
deny the site plan.
As of the last meeting, you guys had been leaning toward
So what we were trying to do was to work something that would appease both sides. Either move back the wall and put shrubs in, or,
So that could be another third option is to approve with conditions.
and that's what we offered to them, and they came back and
It
said,
said-
we'd
it's
rather
all-
just
yeah,
table
we're
it.
talking, you had aesthetic concerns, hydrological concerns, and then, say, just a common sense concern that if you do something without a permit, it's at your risk. So to the precedential concern.
Well, did anybody even bring their Three Circle Grove set of documents?
I did,
I do have.
from last meeting.
Yeah,
I do have the comments that Kurt wrote
Okay.
on the board, he requested that they be read to the board. Sorry, my mark's at the very end of the slide. The discussion over this project has been, I'm sorry, this is from Kurt Gerbich, an alternate planning board member. He served last month as a regular member during, as a member during the discussion. The discussion over this project has continued for almost 1 year. The project managers and applicants have not come forth with earnest solutions to neighbors' concerns. The project applicants are beginning to make an embarrassment of our city and planning board by continuing to flaunt our requests for alternative designs and make a mockery of our lack of accountability. This project has taken an enormous amount of time and produced no result. I am reminded that the time given to reviewing this project is time donated by voluntary board members. Meanwhile, neighbors to this project have diligently attended several planning board meetings, provided comments and suggestions, completed FOIL requests, and taken photos and notes regarding the process and project. These neighbors deserve relief. In my opinion, time has run out on the project applicants. They failed to develop a reasonable solution to the retaining wall inside of 30 days. They have failed to diligently act in the best interests of the city, planning board, or neighbors. I encourage the planning board to move the Three Circle Drive case to the agenda. Make a motion, second, and resolution to place the project back into the hands of the city building code officer, who I hope issues a citation and stop work order for a violation of city code. If I were present, I would make this motion myself. I'm happy to do so in August if it has not been resolved by then.
a stop work order for the house?
I don't,
I'm thinking.
There's already a stop work
already a
order
stop
on
work-
on
there's
the
already
wall.
a stop
On
work
the
order,
wall,
yeah.
right.
It got
and the
sent to us
drainage.
because they said you either take it down or take your chance with planning board, and now it's getting held up from the planning board. So I see the point. Dean, what did you say about whoever, sponsored it has to be the one to take it off the table?
applicant could always withdraw their request.
The applicant,
the applicant,
okay,
yeah.
I thought you meant the planning board member that,
If it was, yeah, the applicant.
I see what you're saying.
But withdrawing their request doesn't solve the problem.
No.
No. So does anyone wanna make a motion after much discussion on this particular
we-
issue?
it's technically still tabled, so you have to.
Do we need to
Bring it back to the table.
untable it?
Yeah.
Bring
So
it
I
back
need
to
a
the
motion
table.
to bring it back to the table.
Motion to bring back to the table.
Do I have a
We're moving
second?
ahead.
Second?
Is that Rick?
Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Motion passes.
Okay, so now you can discuss it.
Now it's on the table.
Can I just make the point, Marissa, Reg may not have been on
He-
at the table, but has been totally informed and present at the majority of
And
the
you received
meetings.
all the packages with all the information.
And I was at the last meeting and I heard the discussion, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty familiar. And I've also driven by the site, so I've actually looked at it.
Yeah. So I think he's familiar with the argument.
Okay,
It would be,
familiarization
yeah,
that's
he's
been
familiar
required,
with the
okay?
project.
We're good?
So without the applicant being here, we're told it was our right to vote and do what we need to do?
Yeah, it's on the agenda. I
Joe,
can't
can
speak
you look
for
over
any
your shoulder?
communications the building inspector has had
Knock
with
the
them.
socks off, there you go.
So, and you're saying the third option is to, we can request that they do this alternate plan of moving the wall, what we talked about,
Yeah,
rather than approving or denying.
as long as they're rational and related to health, safety, welfare, count, whatever is within your purview. Yeah.
And then it's up to them to do it, or,
Face, subsequent or further enforcement action.
So
Or
is
withdraw and don't do
everyone
anything.
kind of understand that
Given
the
the
option we were talking about last
Based on
month?
them moving those blocks in without any prior approval, plan review or approval, yes, I think that's the
I
direction we
need
wanna
to
go.
stop this for a minute. I'm a recusal on this. I didn't think this was
Forgot
gonna
about
come
you,
up
pal.
tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna step back, because
Okay.
long ago and far away, when this very
Oh, my.
process started, he asked me for advice and he came to me, not knowing I was going in front of the zoning board. So, John, much as you don't wanna,
No, I don't want to.
It
you're
goes to-
Derek, okay?
Yes, Derek's the man.
You don't want
No, I don't
to,
wanna.
okay.
You don't have
So
to
Derek,
physically-
you're in charge.
You don't have to physically.
You don't have
I
to
will.
physically. You do?
I'm not leaving the room, I'm only leaving the
Oh, my.
So so one of the options that we kind of passed out to the applicant was, it seems like you're gonna have to dig up underneath the wall anyway to remove the pipe based on the third-party engineer report.
Third-party engineering review,
Saying
correct.
you're gonna have to remove that pipe, put in a perforated pipe.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're doing that, why don't you move the wall back and put the shrubs in front of it, and that seemed to appease the neighbors, and it seemed like a rational, logical solution.
I think consistent with the moving of the wall, moving the wall and putting those blocks back appropriately, okay?
Laying them appropriately.
Yes, appropriately with proper bedding so that they don't have any type of settlement or anything like that. A proper installation of, reinstallation of those blocks. I think that's the word we want to use on this, okay?
Okay.
Are you gonna request that the applicant provide a new site plan for you to review so that you can see exactly where it's being put back?
Yes, that would be appropriate, so they don't just start slapping things in and putting them haphazardly in there. I think that would be appropriate. Let's do that. We need to make a motion to do that.
Well, are we done discussing it, I
Yeah.
guess, first off?
You got any ideas there, Rick?
I've stated all along, without the city of Plattsburgh possessing design standards, it's hard for me to justify that we can make that recommendation, because we don't have a standard that is uniform and enforceable throughout the community. Personally, I would be satisfied with making a negative declaration against this proposal,
Meaning,
meaning I'd vote against it.
You just deny the application as presented.
Right. Which means he has no authority to keep this here, that it would go back to Joe McMahon because he doesn't have an approvable site plan
Correct.
and have to remove them as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So let him come back to us with the option of how he's gonna place these blocks.
that makes sense, cause that's essentially
I
how
see where you're
we
going.
they left it off last time, is they said,
With us.
we're not gonna take that option of moving the blocks back and putting shrubs in front. They
Right.
By
basically
default,
said,
it goes back to the building inspector.
so that's what I guess was wondering
Yeah.
where it falls, it goes back to Joe.
Yes, in my opinion. Dean, could you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if
Okay.
this is not a typical scenario, so this was kind of a solution to obtain as-built approval, and if there's no as-built
Right.
approval, then it's back
That's
to Joe,
correct.
then,
It wasn't typical that it got dropped in our laps like this, yes.
To be clear, the applicant last month did make a comment that they would, if required to remove it, they would place what's within the code, which is putting it right on the property line, cement blocks, that is allowed per code.
You're talking about a construction material that's not recognized as a design standard.
No.
And I don't think we should set the precedent of allowing unapproved design standards for this board to make that as a recommendation. I feel that a negative declaration on this motion would require him to go back to the building inspector, and if their means to mitigate through that office is to require them to go to court to have these blocks removed, that's the correct process.
So it got to us in the first place because their blocks were not part of a building permit? Is that, am I
I believe it was that
remembering
they
that?
That's
constructed-
close.
they-
I think you're
they-
close, yeah.
I'm sorry, my memory is failing us, and I don't have it. in front of
Old.
me either, but, I believe it was that they did the work, told the building inspector they had no plans to do something like this, and did it that same day.
a wee bit slippery, yep.
So then it was,
But I believe the building inspector referred it to us because it is allowed within the code, but per the code, he could refer it to us under drainage for consideration for site plan.
We have an obligation for aesthetics, and I don't think that this falls under any residential
That is the point we
aesthetically
made last month.
appropriate construction material.
Landscape architecture, no,
Not at all.
not at all.
There is something in the code, and I'm sorry if the audience will allow me to review it, or if anybody has their zoning book in front of them, I don't know that anybody does. There is a design standard, there is some.
that was what was read into the
Just the character of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
minutes last month.
Those blocks don't cut it though.
I don't
No.
think it
No.
matches the standard. Just one man's opinion.
Okay, so where do we sit now?
I think we open it up for public comment, and then we decide how we wanna vote on it.
Do we have public comment on
You
this?
don't have to
You don't
necessarily,
have
it's up to you.
I think it's appropriate that these people took their time to come and anticipate an applicant would have a presentation, and lacking that presentation.
If there's new information, I feel like then
Yeah.
we'll hear that. So, open it up for public comment?
It's up to the chair. If you do, I do suggest you put confines on the time frame of that comment.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 minutes per, comment, and we open up the meeting for public comment now. Anyone like to come forward? Is that a 2?
In 25.
2 minutes?
I just wanted to add to the conversation. It is also on
Can
it.
you state your name?
Oh, sorry, Mary Ann Shaughnessy, at Forest Spring Circle. The blocks are on an easement also, so the stop work order was put in place because he just did it without the code enforcement, no. I wasn't really sure what to expect at the meeting today, so, my main comments, I guess, are if a motion's being set, we just wanna make sure that it's either very, very specific as to what he needs to do, because it seems like at the zoning, board meetings, he claimed he would put in a French drain when we talked about, our concerns with drainage in September of 2017, and then that never happened. He claimed here that the pipe that was in was a French drain, and it's not. He claimed at the last meeting at like 34 minutes that the pipes weren't hooked up, and we have pictures of the pipes hooked up. His foundation pipes that go around the house are hooked up to the pipe that was disturbed under the block walls. I think the third-party review said it needs to come out, and he needs to come up with a better plan. Yes, in the code, it says a retaining wall can go anywhere on the property, but it also says an easement needs to be cleared 20 feet in width, both ways onto each property line, and he just put it smack dab in the middle of the easement on top of electrical lines. It needs to come out, or something extremely specific should be made in a motion as to what he needs to do. And these, I don't know, you guys were talking about the general architecture standards that Kurt was
Right.
looking at, I
Yep.
don't know. So we
That's
just
2.
referred to them, I don't know. I guess that's all we have for right now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just leave these for the record? These are the pipes hooked up, draining onto our property and have been since.
Anybody else for public comment?
One-way check, another coming
You don't even have to turn it over. Winslow Moore, 8 Calvin. I just want to say I agree with whoever on the board wrote that comment about how I think you guys have tried to work with him, and he's somewhat made a mockery of it. I mean, it's been, who builds a house? It's 2 years, 3 years, and doesn't have the prints or how he's gonna do the drainage or the backyard. I mean, you don't do that. You have a full set of plans. You may have a little tweaking that might take a month or two, but years, this has been going on years. And I feel bad for the people that have to keep coming to these meetings, and he doesn't even show up. I mean, just doesn't seem the way it should happen. That's it. Thank you.
Mine's quick too. I'm Michelle Brandon, 9 Meadowvale Road. We're we touch corners of property. But my main concern, whatever, the aesthetics does concern me, but I thought the whole thing came to you guys because of drainage. And I know that it hasn't been resolved, but it seems to me that it just keeps on creating a problem for especially 2 properties. And that has got to stop. I mean, these people they're getting flooded. I mean, they really were flooded in the spring. It's constant, and, you know, something has to be done sooner rather than later, I think. But good luck.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Okay, then we close the public comment session. So, I guess it's basically, my feeling is if we deny this, I wanna make sure that it's gonna go back and get resolved. And I feel like it's been bounced, we're bouncing it back again when Joe bounces it to us.
Well, it's stagnant right now. It's not moving anywhere right now. Yes?
Right, right.
Okay.
So we decline it, we'll at least set something in motion,
Mm-hmm.
but I understand your point too, Rick, as
Yeah,
far as we're not making aesthetic.
I'm
That's not the
gonna
point of the
stick
board.
with that point. You know, retaining walls are permissible. What's to say the next guy doesn't use his rowboat as a part of his retaining wall or any other kind of material? I don't think that the ordinances are written with the intent of using materials such as this for the neighborhood appeal, the curb appeal. I think more thought could have gone into it. Is it a retaining wall? Does it retain? Yeah, it retains. But I don't think that it meets minimum threshold for, aesthetics. It doesn't
meet
fit.
minimum, right. That's a good way to say it.
And as far as the drainage issue, we've had the third party say you've got to remove the solid pipe, put in a different size perforated pipe. Has that happened yet, or are they just waiting for us to make a decision?
They want to abandon the pipe, they were waiting for you guys to
Abandoned in
compel them.
place, yeah.
They wanted,
yeah.
they're waiting for you to compel them. If that is what you choose to do.
Yeah.
So if we decline this, and what happens with the third party, finding?
We can decline it and forward the comments of the third party to the agency that will be dealing with it. And I don't mean any disrespect to the neighbors that don't like it, but I'm going back to the fact that we don't have a design standard that differentiates whether we should be accepting concrete block or rejecting them. I just don't think it fits into that part of the code that says that's an acceptable material.
Okay, so then but as far as the drainage issue, which we do vote on regularly, and that's something that we have to do. We've taken the third party comments and we basically tell them that they have to adhere to those comments, correct?
That's correct, and we can also specify that the construction material doesn't meet the minimum standard
The
for.
construction material being the blocks.
Correct.
The blocks, right.
For,
Okay.
aesthetically, I haven't seen an argument that says aesthetically that's what we want in our neighborhood. Or from the developer that says any reason why that's a better type of, has a better retention value than any other construction material. It doesn't look good. And it's not appropriate,
And reputedly, according to the neighbors, it doesn't work good.
and
Or
it doesn't
well.
work well.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any
Reg?
ideas,
So
comments?
we're making a motion to deny this application then with it. That's what we're doing.
That's, yeah, that's, I guess what
That's
I
the
was
old one.
getting to is.
Yeah,
So it's the plans that are set here.
correct. Make a motion to deny these plans based on the third-party review that we have that
Third-party
indicates
review.
pipes that need to be removed as combined with the character and make, model of the blocks that were installed prior to any review or approval.
So their plan, that, if I remember, this plan was saying that they wanna just leave the old pipe that's under the existing wall.
place.
And put in the perforated pipe behind the wall.
Behind the wall, yes,
And our third-party review was telling us,
right
There
there.
also a question about
See?
the easement, the position of the wall.
You had the municipal lighting
Leave
department
in
easement.
place.
There was a thing. I don't
Existing
remember the
abandoned in
details.
place.
That's mom blind as a bat.
but our third party
There's a
said to
new one.
remove it.
Remove it,
I
yeah.
just wanna make sure we remember everything that we've
Mhm.
gone over, cause it has been a while. So, yeah, the
We're
third-party
denying-
review was to remove,
This is the essence of what we're denying right
yeah,
here.
right.
The comment from last month regarding the easement was that it should, per code, it's supposed to be cleared 10 feet in either direction.
So it's the material, it's the pipe, and it's the encroachment.
But there was an email from MLD saying
Yeah,
it's fine where it stands.
that they approved it, I don't know that they have the authority to override the code, but they did not have. an
Oh, I
authority.
see what you're saying. So you're talking about the zoning code?
Yes.
Okay.
I think by sending it back to the building inspector with our review, comment, and recommendations is the appropriate way.
Agree,
With it.
agree.
And John had just previously articulated a motion, I don't know if you caught that.
We caught some of it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You had articulated.
I did?
You
Oh,
did.
well, thank you, Dee.
And you could second that if that was the
Yeah.
basis for your motion.
I'm trying.
That's,
I've
yeah,
got
well, I
a
wanna
motion
have
to
it.
deny based on the third-party review.
Oh,
That's-
yeah,
I'm sorry,
you
that's
had
all I
two other
got.
points you had.
Yeah. You wanna
To
have the
remove the
material,
pipe.
John?
Yeah, remove the pipe?
Remove the pipe under the wall.
Right. Well, if you're talking about removing the pipe under the wall, you're talking about removing the blocks. You gotta lift up the blocks. You see what I'm saying? And our intent is that not only does that pipe need to be removed, the blocks also need to be removed. See what I mean? Because they were not approved as part of this, overall project. You with me?
Yep.
So our request was to review a proposed retaining wall, site grading, and related improvements.
Right, right. We reviewed it.
So we can,
We do not like this design alternative here of how they're doing it. We deny that design alternative.
okay,
Mm-mm. That's basically it, thus returning it back to either the buildings inspector or the codes enforcement officer, one way, shape, or another.
Yeah.
You good with that, Shalice?
Yes.
Yep,
so do we have a motion?
I think I just made it, didn't I? Was that good? Deny said engineering design for proposed retaining wall, site grading, and related improvements for 3 Circle Grove. We're denying that, thus it commands the owners, the site owners, to come up with another plan, thus putting this back in the hands of the building inspector.
With the recommendation to remove.
With, go ahead.
Yeah, it's your motion, so
No need for courtesy here, we don't need to be courteous. With the intent to have these blocks removed, that are currently in place right now.
Intending or requiring the application?
Requiring,
And, I'm sorry, you said an alternative design to go to the building inspector?
correct,
Okay.
which it then could come here, of course.
Which it will.
It's a motion.
no, that's a good motion.
Is there a second?
I want to second that.
That hurt a lot. Any discussion on the motion?
And roll call vote.
We're winging this one. This is a very odd project, I gotta tell you that, you know? That got thrown at us, you know, like some bad tomatoes, yeah.
So I guess the discussion would be, do we feel comfortable making that motion? And our intentions are to clear this up, or move it along so it gets cleared up one way or the other?
One way, shape, or another, you cannot move forward on this. That part of the project for that property is on hold, yes? So, yeah, we don't
We've
like this
offered
project. They
multiple
need,
solutions that have
Yes.
been declined by
Yes.
the applicant, so we're now at this point where we wanna make something
Mhm.
happen.
correct.
Okay.
That is the intent.
So we had a second, and now we do roll call.
Reginald Carter,
Sweating like a pizza guy.
Aye.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
John Canoza.
Yes.
Derek Rosenbaum.
Yes.
35 minutes, I mean, what's on
But you won't see it.
Excuse me, can you impose a timeline since there's a flooding issue on the block?
We
removal?
can.
You can.
We can,
Codes officer can.
Yeah.
Building inspector can.
yeah, because it's adversely affecting the neighborhood.
So it's resident.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Yeah, we missed her too much.
I just have a question, is that okay? So now that this site plan was denied, the stop work order goes into effect because it was either remove the blocks or get site plan approval, so now you would have to automatically remove the blocks, is that correct?
That was placed in the motion.
That was nice.
Okay, yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
making sure that I.
Yeah.
She will make sure that this gets copied to the building inspector
Okay.
/ codes enforcement, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With the intent to move this along.
Okay.
No, we appreciate it.
Yep,
We're just
I
trying
Yeah.
to clarify
Make sure that
I know.
what just happened.
Yeah.
Because we can just see it taking a left turn.
He's a sneaky guy.
And I don't even know that this has anything to do with you guys, but the whole MLD approving those staying there, that's on the easement, I was just wondering how that all works, because it's my understanding, and I could be wrong, that his house is not from that transformer now. So the easement to get to that transformer is only going to affect the house that's for sale, on Circle Grove, our house and Chauncey's. And he's got stuff over that easement, but MLD said it
We don't know
was
anything
okay,
about that.
but it doesn't even really affect his house.
You know
I think-
something?
We don't, we don't really, yeah, as far as we were told, MLD said it was okay the way it was.
Something me.
Right, so I guess that would be to go to MLD with that question.
I had a feeling it wasn't you guys, but.
No, thank you for asking.
And now that they're being removed, it's Joe McMahon who would be in charge of saying, there's an easement here, the closest you can get to this property line is.
I'd say go to
10 feet,
Joe
10
for
feet.
enforcement and
Yeah.
talk to him.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're done seeing you.
I would like to believe so,
Unless it comes-
yes.
I just want to throw that out.
Absolutely, I understand,
I have
yeah.
nothing against you guys, but.
I know you don't.
They're such nice people.
We
I
can't
don't know
say
about
that
that,
he won't
but-
reapply with a
Right,
different
but
design.
for this issue now.
He could reapply with a different design, you know.
Okay.
If he came the first month and we declined it, it would've gone back to zoning and we'd be in the same spot we are now anyway, so, right?
Yes,
That's how
I think,
understand it.
I believe so, yes.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank
Move
you.
on to something easier.
Oh, yeah.
Not like that.
It gets a lot easier from here.
Thank you, guys, I really
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's-
Okay, so we're on to, any correspondence received regarding, appeal
You know?
2019-10 and -11?
Yes, I have comments from Kurt Gilbert on those items as well.
Okay.
I know.
Okay, so these comments again from Kurt Gilbert regarding both items 2019-10 and 2019-11. These are not gonna make sense in context.
Okay,
Got that.
but did we get any correspondence from the applicant saying, please, that was the discussion
Oh, to
at the
table it
earlier
today?
meeting? Yes.
Verbal request.
There was a verbal request to table 2019-10 regarding 22 Durkee and 2019-11, 22 Durkee, because so many things are in flux, we don't have lead agency. they're gonna come up with better plans, et cetera. So they realize they don't have enough information to even do a conceptual plan tonight, so they've asked to not be heard tonight, right, verbally?
I wouldn't word it exactly like that, but yes, they have
Okay.
requested verbally to not, to be tabled tonight.
Okay, so specifically for these site plan reviews, for 2019-10 and 2019-11, can I get a motion to table them?
I'll make the motion.
Who made the motion? Derek
Yeah.
makes the motion?
Rick made a
Rick made
second.
the,
Sorry,
Rick
my head was
seconds.
down.
I'm afraid to table anything.
Any further discussion on
After the last
tabling
one.
these? Because of their request, they think they don't have enough information available for us? No
That's
further
fine.
discussion?
No?
Okay, can I have a vote? All in favor to table these two, 2019, 2019-10 and 2019-11? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, passed, so they're on the table. Okay, new business. We have some new business that's not on the agenda. It's a discussion on the potential for a GEIS environmental review, a much larger look at the entire city DRI-related projects, parking, areas being added, subtracted, everything. And I'm just gonna leave it to you to explain what a GIS is to the few people in the audience that
That is
haven't heard it
wise.
already. And what the Common Council sent to us today, which is a request to be a lead agent, in that different process than what we discussed last month.
Sure. So a generic environmental impact statement is a mechanism set forth in the State Environmental Quality Review Act, which allows an agency to review a larger project with numerous components. The two typical scenarios where you utilize that tool would be if you were doing a rezoning and looking at numerous properties with no concrete projects and kind of a higher level comprehensive plan type review. The second scenario, which is invoked here, is when you have a project that is spread over a geographic area with different components, and it allows the reviewing agency to take a cumulative look at those potential environmental impacts. The GEIS process, the generic environmental impact statement, essentially cuts right to the end of an environmental assessment form. As you know, if you review an environmental assessment form, if you identify any potential adverse environmental impacts, you may require an environmental impact statement. In this scenario, you're jumping right to the end, which is the environmental impact statement from the outset. It will require a planning consultant because it is a high-level, complex review that may involve certain traffic studies or traffic patterns, and again, numerous projects. The GEIS process necessarily requires an initial scope where you review what projects will be reviewed, and then there'll be a draft environmental impact statement, which is put forth to the public for comment. There'll be a public hearing. The public can make comments, which will necessarily be reviewed by the lead agency, who will then address any substantive or viable comments that were made. The end result will be a final environmental impact statement. It will take at least several months to complete this process. The benefit is at the end of that GEIS review, you will have the environmental review component satisfied, so that any other lingering permits, approvals can then be addressed with having known that the environmental review has already been completed. On Thursday night, the Common Council approved a resolution to seek this GEIS and establish itself as lead agency. Subsequently, a letter was sent to the various involved agencies requesting their consent to the Common Council's review. And again, legally, any involved agency who has the tools can carry out that lead agency status, but there are certain factors that this board would want to consider, specifically the timing of the request, because there is certain urgency with certain state grants. The substance of the request, in that the DRI has been kind of a comprehensive project that's involved numerous facets of the city, not only specific permit applications, but also larger policy questions such as parking management and the like. There's also monetary concerns or considerations, specifically who will retain, pay, and work with those consultants. There are, in any lead agency request, you want to analyze whether your agency has the experience with that specific process. And in this case, I don't believe there's any city agency that has gone through the GEAS process. So ultimately, there are certain time constraints at issue, and hence some of the expressed urgency.
So, the letter from the city, the council, to us, the board, says that these projects may include, projects to be looked at as part of this GEIS, are not limited, may include but not limited to the Durkee Lot mixed-use development, the Saranac Riverwalk, the Durkee Street reconfiguration and parking improvements, the Bridge Street parking improvements, demolition of the former Glens Falls National Bank on Margaret Street, and construction of the Arnie Pavone Memorial Parking Plaza with the associated abandonment of Division Street, streetscape improvements at various downtown locations, West Lacombe Park improvements and Art Walk, expansion and reconfiguration of the Broad Street municipal parking lot, additional parking improvements in various downtown locations, installation of paid parking kiosks throughout the downtown area, relocation of the Plattsburgh Farmers Market and Crafters Market from Durkee to the Harborside area, and Harborside improvements and possibly others. So the game plan here is, I think, to do an environmental study that looks at the big picture, which I think is what everyone has been asking us to look at, asking the council. Look at the parking altogether. The parking's one of the biggest parts of it, but there's other issues here that'll come up as part of the scoping, as we start looking at what other issues are determined to be of environmental importance for the project. This letter was delivered to us today, and so I'm asking my board to not vote on this issue, to cede lead agency status to the council tonight. I'm asking that we actually schedule a meeting for a week from tonight, so that the board has a week to digest the issues, whether we want to still assert that we should be the lead agency, or whether we want to cede lead agency status over to the Common Council. And again, it's up to the board tonight on what happens. I'm ready for discussion.
Can I ask Dean a question, please? What involvement after this initial phase will the planning board have in the process?
Are you under under which premise, that the
Under the
Common Council's
assumption.
lead agency, or
Yeah.
that
Under
this
the
board is?
council's lead agency?
So under that premise, the planning board, the ZBA, and potentially others would be involved agencies under the statute, which necessarily requires the lead agency to request and accept their comments. So you could provide written comments to that lead agency under that scenario. And those comments will be part of the record, and I want to say given more weight, but certainly given the weight that they're entitled to, coming from a co-lead or from a sister board.
Similar to when the county planning board gives us comments.
Not to the extent that they could require supermajority by issuing a denial. So there's some procedural differences, but similar, yes.
So do I understand correctly that at the conclusion of the seeker, we can understand what environmental impacts that there may be, the public will have an opportunity to share their thoughts, and the council will evaluate their thoughts. But that the actual projects will then come back before this board
Precisely.
with a seeker declaration in hand.
Yes, in no way would this remove the substantive permit review, it would only remove the environmental component of that review. And certainly, once that environmental review is completed, then any project that requires PUD, site plan approval, or anything else that's invoked by the code would come back to this board.
Relinquishing none of our authority other than environmental concerns.
Yes.
In terms of this project list, that would only be Durkee Street, is that correct?
No,
The rest would be environmental only, right?
I'm not following.
Are any other projects gonna come to planning, you're saying?
Then I believe there still will be several that require site plan approval.
Farmers
too.
Market, Harborside, yeah.
So, but essentially what we voted on last month to be lead agent for Durkee Street is sort of now dissolved because it's,
It's almost like withdrawn,
Yeah,
it's
there
just,
should- I
it's
mean,
not.
so it's not even that we're trying to be lead
Yeah, there-
agent and the city is,
there
the
should-
council's trying to be
It
lead
should be
agent.
cleaned up through housekeeping, you don't wanna have a kind of a resolution out there in the ether. But yeah, I think the context has changed since last month.
It's a different request, much larger request.
So now the city council is essentially the first one to request lead agency for the
This-
entire
Right,
seeker.
for the
Yeah.
GIS,
GIS,
yes,
okay.
yes. And when you say the council accepts our recommendations, you mean accept in the terms of it's accepted into the file. It's not that they accept and approve everything that we've recommended.
Oh, okay, no.
I don't like that word
Okay, I'll
accept.
say receives, but
Yes.
under the GEAS process, they have to address any comments that are made. That's part of the GEAS process, where you have to, I guess the example would be if someone made a comment that when a monument is painted green, and they don't like how it's painted green, and we can all look and see that it's clearly not painted green, you wouldn't give that comment as much deference as you would a comment from a board saying, hey, we've identified X, Y, and Z, please address X, Y, and Z. And if the common council received those comments and did not adequately address them, that would potentially open up a legal challenge.
Is there any reason, I guess, would people feel comfortable voting on this tonight, just for time's sake and expediency? Or do you feel like you need a week? I guess that's, I'm feeling.
I definitely feel like I need a week.
Did you take, votes on this already, Shalice?
Opinions.
You took opinions on this already? Aha, okay.
I don't think the opinion question that was asked is the same as it is today, so
I agree.
I think
Yeah.
that's a completely different question. I think the only question in my mind, do I need another week to come up with a complete thought as to how I would vote?
On lead agency,
Yeah,
do you?
I don't.
I don't either.
Can these be read into the minutes and,
These were
Should they?
attorney-client communication that were
Okay.
confidential, so I would not suggest that, but yes, you can.
I guess
Yeah.
we're here, we've got the time, we can discuss it, and if, I guess, vote and decide which way we wanna take the
There may
week or
be
what-
other comments out there that
Comments from who?
anyone that might wanna speak.
Is this
In other
open
words,
to
are you
public
saying
comment?
wait for it?
No, I'm not saying that. I appreciate the public's opportunity to participate, and that's what I'd be asking. Does the public have opinion that they wanna share regarding our status as either lead agency or consenting to the council being lead agency?
Can you also review, what we talked about earlier that Mr. Shackner had said on the phone about who would be legally enabled to be the lead agency under this process?
Yeah, any involved, like any seeker review, any involved agency in a type 1 action or similar type action could seek to be lead agency status,
Why they
lead agent.
ask.
There's no
They
legal
always
basis to determine that the common council, the ZBA, or the planning board legally should be the lead agent. That was the essence of his comment.
Squander of grant money.
Yeah.
There it is.
Do you want me to open it up? Not sure.
I do.
Okay.
I would like to hear,
Okay, we're gonna open this up to public comment. You have 2 minutes.
as it pertains.
Yes,
To
as
this
to
matter, anybody
the issue of turning over the GIS lead agency status to common council from us. Any takers?
I'll make a comment. Thank
Okay,
Okay.
name and your
you. My
limit.
name is Scott Allen. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm just gonna make one statement, actually. I've been coming to these planning board meetings in the city of Plattsburgh since 1989. Dozens, perhaps maybe even hundreds, including other zoning and planning board meetings throughout the region, literally in the hundreds. And this is the first meeting I've ever been at when the time for a speaker has been allotted 2 minutes for any action at one of these. And I think that's just symptomatic of a larger problem that the city has here. Good night, folks.
Anyone else?
Does it tell you to flip over the assignment too?
Okay, I'm gonna close the public comments section. So does anyone have a motion? I'm not sure if I can make a motion, so I don't know.
Why not?
Well, then I'll make a motion. I don't know, can I make a motion? Okay,
I'm
I'd
not,
like to make a motion, it'll
can
probably
can I ask
fail.
you
Rick's
to
got a
delay a
question.
second?
Yeah.
Derek brought up an interesting point, and the point of correspondence that we received. I can read what it says here, Dean, but can you tell us what exactly does confidential attorney-client privilege communication mean? How it pertains to not being part of the public record?
So, in order to obtain legal advice, there's a special privilege where you can talk to an attorney freely, and as long as you haven't made certain threats of imminent physical harm to another person, that attorney has to keep those discussions confidential. It also goes vice versa, where there's a public board, there's a need frequently to seek legal advice, but to do so publicly would defeat the purpose or reveal any strategy or expose something that was discussed with that legal advice. So there's numerous statutes built in, including the Freedom of Information Act and the Open Meetings Law, which allow attorney-client discussions regarding legal advice to remain confidential so that it's not necessarily discussed to the public. That allows these discussions to occur freely, so there's trust in that conversation. That being said, there's a First Amendment right for anyone to say whatever they want to say, as long as it's not fire in a crowded theater, or in a municipal agency context. If you were reviewing someone's public health records, that would be illegal to discuss those public health records. So there's no gag order on any individual from discussing what an attorney has advised them, but it's just a practical concern that in the future that attorney may, or attorneys may be reluctant to give candid advice for fear of that conversation being revealed publicly.
And can you also explain briefly that the basis of this attorney firm being the city of Plattsburgh being a client of theirs?
Yep. So Miller, Manick, Schechner, and Hefner has been, has represented the city for at least 5 years, possibly more. At least as long as I've been involved with the city, they've been our attorneys for Article 7 proceedings. That's one division of their firm. They also have a land use and planning division. And Mark Schachner was recommended by several individuals as one of the preeminent seeker attorneys in the state. So with those recommendations and the fact that we had that pre-existing relationship, I reached out personally and along with several other city departments, have had numerous conversations with Mr. Shackner over the past several weeks to discuss the context of these reviews and the, I don't want to say the cheapest by any means, but the most efficient way to complete the reviews. Again, if we don't go down this GEAS route, then there will be parallel environmental reviews, which are appropriate, but also subject to their own challenges. And then again, as Chairwoman Gilbert acknowledged or referenced, there's no legal reason that any agency has to be or should be the lead agent. It comes down to who is best suited based on the context that we're in. And I believe I already highlighted those 4 or 5 reasons a moment ago. We had a pre-discussion upstairs as to those on the ground motivations.
Okay.
Yeah.
In being an arm of the city, you being our attorney, have requested the participation of this firm to assist us in helping make a decision.
Yes, yes.
Therefore, coming in full circle with the answer, at your request for assistance for seeker review, this board has the privilege of this attorney firm representing the board.
Yeah, so they're representing the city just as I am. My goals are to act in the best interests of the city as a whole. So I know there's, I don't call it turf war amongst boards regarding jurisdiction. I don't have that same ingrained motivation. My motivation is to give advice, take it or leave it. And policy decisions are up to the respective boards.
I'm not real clear. It seems as if the first part of this letter is coming from Miller, Manick, Shackner, and Hafner, but then later on you're speaking in a singular voice on page 4 and page 5, where you're giving the reasons. Third, the planning board experience, etc. Is that coming just from, is part of this letter coming just from you, and part of it coming from them? It's not
This
clear.
letter is coming from 3 authors, myself, Mr. Shackner, and Ms. White. They were not, as far as the second component of that, that's opinion based on the context that we're in. They have only had the benefit of approximately 2 weeks, plus or minus, dealing with these issues. So they don't, I believe, characterize it as very rational points, but they don't have the on-the-ground experience as I do.
So they are also asserting the things that are on page 4 and
They've
page 5?
reviewed and had
They've
no issue.
reviewed that, and that's part of their letter too, even though it's in the single voice and it's coming from you.
It's coming from all 3 of us, but I just.
So it's not we, it's I. That's what my I. So I just wanna make sure they actually are behind the entire text of the letter.
Yes.
Cause he didn't seem to make that point on the phone today. He just was only willing to express the legal side on the phone. So if we include this, are we gonna be in trouble if we include this in the record? Because if I have people making a decision based on this opinion,
I expressed my opinion upstairs, I also expressed my opinion down here. I gave you the salient points as part of the minutes or as part of the record here. But yes, I won't say you're not gonna get in trouble, but it would certainly defeat the purpose of a candid attorney-client written communication by placing this physically within the record.
So I guess my feeling, just my thought, is that when we initially found out that city council wanted to have lead agency, I guess it was different than it is right now, cause we thought we had voted on that last month. But again, that was just for the one Turkey Street parking lot, which
Project.
essentially has now been combined into all the citywide DRI stuff. So I guess it feels a little different in that the city council is essentially the first one to request lead agency at this point for the entire project. And whatever we voted on last month really has no bearing today because everything's changed.
Yes.
You know, I honestly don't see where we've relinquished any of our authority other than the environmental portion of the concern. We still will be the overseers of the development, as Dean had just stated. The public is protected. They have
Still have
multiple-
site plan review
That's correct.
for the projects.
The public still has multiple opportunity for input, suggestion, recommendation, point of view, whatever they decide to speak about. I appreciate the guidance that was written in here. I personally don't have a need to wait another week. I felt strongly initially that we were giving up something and having the reassurance that we're not giving up, you know, that the actual development review process, I feel comfortable.
Yeah, that's essentially what it felt at first, like the council was trying to come over the top and take it, but
Yeah,
essentially
take it
that's
out
not,
of your hands.
that's
Yes.
not the case, so I feel.
We're talking lead agency
better.
status on the seeker.
But yeah, I mean, I feel the points made in this, and watching everything unfold throughout the city with the DRI and the time that's been spent, that I personally, I feel like I have enough to vote tonight rather than waiting another week. I know it's just another week, but it seems like things are, you know, could get hairy if we, it's not gonna be on us, but still, if we can move things along faster, I think it's,
Yeah.
it's better for the city.
Agree.
Before you guys do make a motion, I forgot, I'm sorry, we still do have the outstanding comment from Kurt Burbidge.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Shalice, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry, before you guys make a motion, there is still the outstanding comment from Kurt Burbidge that he requested be read into the record. Are you guys ready for that now?
Go for it.
On one hand, having the common council take the lead role has advantages, namely this is a controversial project and
Just
it's-
a point of clarification, when did he send that?
He sent this yesterday
Yeah, I'd
evening,
rather
I'm sorry, yesterday morning,
decision
it's 7:51 AM.
Let the city be late. See, I'm okay with that.
Don't know, yeah.
Yesterday, it's Sunday, June 23rd, this was sent.
Correct.
On one hand, having the common council take the lead role has advantages, namely this is a controversial project and in some sense it's preferable to keep our hands clear of it. Frankly, I don't relish the idea of the planning board being at the heart of the controversy or enjoy the idea of the heated and divisive public comment sessions that accompany the project. On the other hand, however, I think it's better governance practice to keep the seeker with the planning board. Seeker reviews are to be objective, scientific, and outside of the political process. The common council, however, is an elected and highly political board. Its members are beholden to constituents and donors, and we elect them as
He
member
wrote
powers
that
and elected
without the
officials'
benefit of the
The
additional
common council
information
therefore
we
is not
received.
objective. Our planning board alternatively is appointed and has term limits. In fact, our current membership was appointed by at least 3 different mayors. We are not beholden to anyone or anything. Our only commitment should be to a fair, inclusive, and evidence-based decision process. I believe this gives us credibility and a more objective position from which to view and discuss environmental impacts. We were also appointed because we have knowledge and skill sets that make us specialists in planning, design, and environmental review. Essentially, we were appointed based on our planning competencies, whereas the council was elected based on their leadership qualities. From that perspective, we are better positioned to evaluate environmental impacts objectively and from an apolitical perspective. While allowing the common council to take lead role might keep our hands clean, I personally would vote to retain control of the planning board. This is a difficult conclusion and places us in a difficult position, but we're the rightful and appropriate place to situate the process, and we have more expertise in this area. We must rise to the occasion. Much of what our planning board does is the tedious review of window, roof, and porch replacements in the historic districts. While that is important work, it is less consequential to the overall future of the city. The DRI offers a chance to actually help our community consider its future in a significant way. If we're not willing to take up hard planning decisions like this, then all the window and roof replacements are wasted efforts and we're not doing right by the community. I wish you all luck on Monday and wish I could be there. Please let me know how it goes. I'm truly sorry to miss the meeting part. Again, for context, this was sent yesterday, Sunday, June 23rd, and he has not yet seen the documentation that you
So
all
he's talking about last month's vote.
Last month's, yes, and coming back for this month's meeting.
He's aware of the common council's vote on Thursday. I don't know that he has the full details he definitely does not have the full details that you guys have been provided with today.
So it's not really clear then in the end if he's talking GEIS or he's talking, because he says DRI,
He knows that it's the comprehensive GEIS.
he knows it's GEIS, so. Those are his comments. So, someone wanted to make a motion?
I don't disagree with the thoughts of Kurt. As a matter of fact, that was the basis of our decision last month.
Yeah, cause we
Would,
said,
yeah,
could city council be secret lead agent?
correct, where I've, become more informed, as to the process, in that the fact we are still the board that makes the decisions that Kurt spoke about. I don't think we've given that away. I think we still retain that function, and I think we retain our value in the process. And I think that's the most important thing to remember, and we provide the public another opportunity to open up and discuss their thoughts, and I'm all for that. So, that's my 2 cents.
So, make a motion to vote.
You can make, I could make a motion that we postpone for a
I
week. You
concur.
could make a motion that we just seat it tonight. You're at the board, make a motion.
If it is the latter, then we should also do some housekeeping to clean up last month's resolution.
Does it have to happen before this vote?
No, it's one and the same.
Define housekeeping.
So you had previously adopted a resolution approximately
Yep.
last month, seeking to establish planning board as lead agent for the Durkee lot
Mhm.
review. So it would just be a motion to, dissolve or terminate,
Rescind.
reset that motion from
Okay.
last month.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion to request a withdrawal last month.
Well, it would be a two-part motion. I don't wanna,
Well,
If you're asking
but
to
if we're gonna,
proper form, it would be
well, one is to vote tonight to see lead agency, or
to consent to.
to
or be a
postpone
motion to consent
a
to
week.
common council, acting as lead agent, for the environmental review as set forth in our letter request dated June 24th, 2019, and further resolving to terminate or dissolve, the motion, or the resolution approved at last month's planning board meeting, seeking to establish itself as lead agency for the specific Durkee lot, component.
Why don't you make the motion to ask if it should be postponed for a week, so we
Okay,
know what we're
well, I'll
gonna
make
do
a
with
motion. If I
that.
don't even get a second, it's just gonna die
Okay.
on the table, okay?
It's gonna die.
I'm like to make a motion that we postpone this whole decision for a week to a special meeting to be held a week from tonight. If I don't get a second,
Any seconds? Motion dies.
Punch in the knee, see what happens.
So now you can make that motion.
Okay.
Or do we have to
Not sure
vote?
what-
you gotta read the words out
Motion to
loud.
terminate or dissolve
So there's no, the consent to lead agency started, and then the second part.
I hate two-part motions. I like
We can do
singular,
You can do two separate motions if you want.
singular motions.
Okay, so the first one would be a motion to consent to the common council acting as lead agent, for their letter request dated June 24th, 2019.
I'll make that motion.
Who's the
Second.
second? Okay,
Second.
further discussion? Can you take a vote that is, roll call but not in the same order as last time?
Sorry, I'm still writing.
Okay, okay.
Okay. John Knozer,
Yes.
Derek Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Marissa Gilbert,
No.
Reginald Gardner.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we need the housekeeping motion.
Read what?
Housekeeping motion.
housekeeping motion. What was the word you used, Dean, on that matter?
Terminate or dissolve
Rescind?
the resolution.
Rescind.
Rescind?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Lead agent for the Durkee Street parking lot.
Motion to rescind the last meeting's decision, or I should say, and vote regarding the Turkey Street parking lot sub-project all by itself. Us having lead agency status. I'm sorry, I'm getting long-winded. I feel like Bill Ferris here.
Motion
I
to
miss
rescind the
Bill.
resolution dated May 29th.
Very good.
To seek lead agency status for the Durkee Street.
Thank you for the fill-in words, Shalice.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion. I'm sticking to it. All right.
Second.
Oh,
Any further discussion?
God, it's hot in here.
We have a vote? Different
Jared
names?
Rosenbaum,
Yes.
Rick Perry,
Yes.
Reg Carter,
Yes.
Marissa Gilbert.
Yes.
John Coz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Well, we're gonna stick doing 80-85% of what we did before, right?
Other business?
This isn't
I'm not sure
it's
how,
not
new
cardiac
business and other
surgery,
business.
You know, it's not.
Do we have any other business?
I'd like to just bring up for discussion,
You do
and
that a lot, you know.
it was,
You do.
it was apparent tonight that, we lack design standards, and we lack material standards, and I've heard that the city may be looking at rewriting its zoning ordinance, and I would like to request, whether it be but for myself or for the remaining board members, that the city take into consideration and include design standards for this rewriting of the ordinance.
That would be appropriate to be included.
Well, the
Is this a- is this-
last time the zoning code was done, I don't know if you remember when they updated the master plan, Saratoga Associates said usually when you have a historic site review board, you also have design review standards
Yeah.
for paint colors, for instance, the famous house on Bigman Street, it's pink and green, okay? Same thing in, we really can't regulate color, there's nothing that says we can regulate color in historic districts or anywhere else.
Yeah.
Or what fences look like, or what walls look like. So that's already been suggested to the city, and
Well,
it didn't happen. And
It didn't happen.
It didn't happen, but usually there's a design standards review board that's all they do. It's not historic site review, it's something different. And we have a hard enough time filling the two boards that we try to fill.
Yeah.
I think it would be
Are
the
you
hardest, I
suggesting
think,
that
no,
we
I'm
don't
just,
need design
I'm just
standards?
saying it's gonna be the hardest thing to get passed. Unless it's really the least design review possible. I'm not sure how to,
You're suggesting that when there's an item before the board, such as a site plan review, that there's a design standard for the board to follow? Is that
I'm not suggesting that we have a design review board.
right?
I'm suggesting that we have design standards and how that's enforced or how that involves other boards. It's gonna be within, the regulations that adopt the standards. And I think it's appropriate to have full discussion about it. Concrete retaining blocks are not a design standard.
No, they're not. But part of the problem with Circle Grove is that this guy, he moved all that stuff in without any, under the
No
cover
permission.
of darkness, like putting in an illegal septic system. That's what he did, okay? And that's half of the problem with this. Your design standards are the other half, okay? If he was more upfront, we would have had the opportunity to tell
Yeah.
him, you're out of your mind, we don't like this design.
Yeah,
Okay?
but we couldn't,
Yeah.
Joe
that's-
couldn't
Joe couldn't,
regulate
but we could.
that standard.
Yeah, we've made enough qualitative
did.
decisions and opinions over the last 5-6 years, how long we've been doing this, right? You know what I mean, that it pertained to something like that, qualitative.
And it may not have to be as detailed as, identifying colors. I mean,
Right.
one of the
No.
things that we talked about years ago in our design standards were streetscape and how projecting signs were appropriate for
Mhm.
Clinton Street.
mhm.
They look good, especially when when they fit into the era of the street that was designed. So I think there
Well,
are,
actually, if you think about it, there's not even a design review standard for downtown.
correct,
Which if we're trying to develop and say it should have a 1930s appeal, or it should have an 1880s
Yeah.
appeal, or something, anybody can do anything pretty much downtown. The front of the JCEO building, which of course just
The
went a
Revo.
remodel and really doesn't look much better than the original version.
yeah,
But there's no standard for that, for downtown.
nothing.
And again, we're trying to make downtown a place you wanna be, that's attractive and whatever, but no standards. So
Yeah.
maybe that's something that needs to be addressed, even if it's
Agreed.
just the downtown district initially, doesn't solve your wall problem, okay?
It
But-
doesn't, but it starts the process to, that's gonna fold out around the city eventually.
To get some qualitative justification for items like this.
Absolutely.
Alright,
So what do we do?
write that down.
That was just
I-
discussion.
Discussion item, I guess, that we don't forget about this item.
Are you looking?
Design standards for something, like that block wall.
But are we looking to
Are
rewrite
you looking to
zoning?
submit like a written request to the county council?
But wouldn't that be nice?
Well, I'm not prepared to say that tonight, but when we go home, it's something that we need to think about, do we wanna impose it? I think so. I think it's a great idea.
Are you talking, Rick, about design standards as well as aesthetic considerations?
Exactly.
Maybe that's a way to phrase it.
Yeah. I open it up as discussion to give us something to think about, but I would like to continue the discussion, whether it be an agenda item or not next month.
Yeah, I agree.
But give it some thought.
And I mean, what is the vehicle to do this, short of rewriting zoning?
No, it's just a recommendation to the mayor and council to consider some type of standard, and as Marissa said, even if we, put it in the downtown, the central business district as having a design standard. We've got some beautiful buildings that the county owns. How do we complement that, We haven't done a great job complementing it.
And we've had a lot of, street front grant rehabilitation
Yeah.
things, but again, how much input did the planning board really have in how those properties were
Yeah,
changed at the street front?
so I think giving it further thought and discussion is appropriate.
Well, if we could get somebody on the board who's retired and has some free time.
Free
Sure.
time?
I'm not sure who that is among us.
It's Reggie,
Um,
of course.
I'm the busiest retiree you've ever met.
I'm just thinking sometimes with the zoning board frequently did, if we had a problem
Yeah,
and we needed to try to find a law that's already passed, and sometimes it's, the council of mayors, okay? You ask them and they get some feedback from them. And the other time, sometimes it's who else has got a historic downtown that's done some things and has some design standards. And I'm thinking, having just spent the weekend in Glens Falls, I look at downtown Glens Falls, and how that's been developed and the historic feel it maintains. And I think they probably have some kind of design standards, not just for historic districts, probably something that's in place for their downtown. Because they want to
Yeah,
keep it a
I agree.
vibrant place, they want
Yeah.
it a walkable place, they want people to go to movies and theaters.
this
And-
exists out there. We don't have to reinvent
And
the
it's New
wheel.
York State,
Yeah.
it's not some other state,
That's all.
okay, it's
Yeah.
not Burlington, okay, it's Glens Falls, New York.
Yeah.
And it's a city, so again, city ordinances, not village, not town, so I think perhaps a call to their planning department would make it available to us.
Get on that, get
Do
on
you
that
have some
phone,
kind of
son.
codes?
There
Do you
go.
have something we can look at, because we're thinking of heading in that direction, because we see what you did and it worked.
I would also ask that the Community Development Office give it some thought and do some research as to standards that might be out there
I've got a
that.
whole list of them I've already been doing.
May I
Thank you.
make a suggestion, since the Community Development Office will be administering a grant that is intended to revamp the city's zoning code, it might be helpful if the planning board were to appoint one of its members as liaison to our office. This is.
My man, Rick. There you go.
Well, Jim can't do it all.
No, he can't. No. Have a good time, Rick. There you go, buddy.
I would like that, yes.
Okay.
Do you guys wanna make a motion to that effect?
Motion,
Yes.
Rick, appoint.
Second.
We're trying to get
We
done.
actually have a motion and a second, we have to vote.
Yeah, do we have any discussion?
So there's already you guys are already doing a rezoning?
There's a,
The city received through the last year's CFA process, a grant to pursue an update of the city's zoning code. So we are just now finalizing the contract with the Department of State, but we should have that within the next few weeks, and then we can get into the meat of the process.
Update the master plan and then update the zoning code?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the process.
So
Yes.
actually rewriting the zoning code?
I don't know if there's enough for the full review.
Yeah, there might not be enough for a complete reevaluation, but there is over $100,000 in there, so.
Okay. Wow. That's
Okay,
good.
so motion has been made, second,
There was a second already.
yes,
To make Rick the liaison?
make Rick the official liaison.
Mr. Big Mouth, this is what happens, see?
And it says to develop design standards.
No, to the rezoning committee.
Oh,
Committee,
Mayor.
yes.
Just to the community development
That's
office.
just
Community
made my
Development
day.
Office, regarding the rezoning project.
Means on Friday I get to vacuum.
All in
Yeah.
favor?
Do something.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Anybody? Oh, he's
God,
abstaining.
God.
Anybody against?
You still got 4.
Pass.
That's good.
Oh, amen. No other business?
Can I bring up continuing education? I'm gonna presume some people, like Jim, because Jim has to take, courses, et cetera, for his engineering licenses. I'm
12
worried
hours
about
a-
him.
12 hours a year.
Right,
Yeah.
all of that, and then, so the key is, the rest of us need to make sure we're halfway through the year now, this is the education year, is a calendar year. And there's a 4-hour requirement. I'm not sure, is the requirement when you're appointed to the board that within the first 6 months you need to complete a certain amount of education?
I haven't seen that requirement.
Okay.
Uh,
But, so we need to all be aware that if you haven't finished your education, that you need to get it in. And also, if you did some in prior years, if you over-educated yourself by, for instance, going down to the Sagamore or something in a prior year, the excess credits over 4 carry over.
Yeah.
And they're in the purple book on
And
her
every,
desk,
and every
or somewhere
year,
near her desk.
every year in December, Glenn Cutter County Planning Office has a 3.5, three-quarter hour planning, education training session, which provides you continuing education credits that
Right,
were required every
right.
year, so.
But he doesn't do 4 hours, that's
Yes.
one of his problems, so.
And nobody's ever called me
Well,
on that
but-
in all
but-
my
but
15 years.
Our code specifies, what other things are allowed, and, I'm trying to remember what college it was.
I'm telling you.
Anyway, you're able to log in online, and it's listed as one of the courses you can take.
State website?
It's through the state, but you end up at a college
Nobody's ever
website
hunted me
somehow.
down for that half hour.
And
I didn't get.
The name is escaping me, anyway, it's listed, and so that's a possibility. And, the other thing is that if you propose something else, apparently the chair of
Then I'll have to.
the board can approve
Yeah.
other
So if I don't
courses.
start, I don't have to.
Yeah, you didn't do it
That's,
last
I
year.
believe, what our law
When
says.
did you start in
So,
college?
so just so that you stay on track, okay, just because, we're halfway through the year, and if you wanna just go online and pick up one course, 1 hour's worth of course, or 2 hours worth of course between now and December, then if you happen to do the full December meeting, you'll be overfunded, and it'll carry over, and,
They provide snacks.
yeah, only because I bugged him. Yeah.
I feel every
Why?
meeting is an education that should
Every meeting
count
is an
toward-
education.
Yeah, really.
Okay, well, but we need documented time, so please,
Document.
2 hours.
please make sure you've got your
Nobody's
document.
ever hunted me
in
down
time.
for that half hour every year, but
Yeah.
I'm good,
Okay.
okay?
Okay. Do you have to take any courses for your job that?
No, but I do.
Yeah.
I do it. I'm an old engineer versus a new engineer like Jimmy Abdallah.
Okay.
Old engineers are grandfathered. We don't have, if we work in the public sector, we don't
Don't
need
have
it.
to.
Right.
Oh. Old engineer.
Yes, I shortened it, that whole statement up, you know?
Okay. Okay, I think we've dealt with
I'll
it.
make a
Oh,
motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Yes.
my.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye, bless your heart.
See, now you like it.
Yeah,
right?
well, I was
Jeez.
waiting for that for about a half
Come on.
hour, so, you know. You're gonna yap that long, bring beer, you know?
See, when I run the continuing education, there is beer.
Yeah, is it really?
Yeah, it's
Good.
beer
All right,
pizza.
I'll go. Now, see, now you
When
changed
I do
the
a
whole
class,
ballgame.